Hey everybody, just thinking today about how funny my God is, and just thinking back on times in my life when he has done things when I've been kind of grumbling or, dragging my feet or complaining about something, and how he always kind of shows up in a funny way. And just thought I'd share some of that with you guys today. Just recently, with the starting of these videos, I've been really grumbling to God, and I don't want to really be doing these. I'm really uncomfortable. But, he just kept kind of putting it on me, and I'm, worried about, my family's going to think more than anything else. I love my family. A lot of them figure that the religious nutbag ship sailed a long time ago, so you've loved me anyway, before that. But, just kind of worried and uncomfortable, and just, trying to get out of it, but I'm doing it anyway. And I was kind of hoping that maybe it was just an exercise for me to be obedient. And maybe nobody would actually see the videos. And then God's like, well, I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm not putting it on Facebook where people can see it, and feeling convicted about only halfway doing what I, feel like I was being told to do. So posted on Facebook, and, promptly had an anxiety attack afterward. But anyway, I didn't really tell anybody verbally that I had done the videos. And I ended up talking with my mom the other day, and I haven't talked to Mom, for a while. It's been just kind of busy, and I hadn't told her and didn't want to tell her I was doing this because I'm embarrassed and I don't want people to see it. And she was talking to me, and she's like, I made a couple YouTube videos. And I thought, oh, well, sheesh, now I gotta tell Mom that I did. It's like, you gotta be, shut up. You did not make videos on YouTube. She's like, yeah, I did. I said, yeah, me too. And she was like, what? So we both laughed about how funny it was that we both felt led out of the blue to kind of do this, and hadn't even talked to each other, so it was kind of funny. But anyway, the other morning I was running around and picking up stuff, my kids' stuff. They leave a trail of crazy behind them everywhere. I mean, socks, toys, dishes, garbage, and I'm just kind of picking things up, and I wasn't really grumbling that I can remember about it, but just kind of doing it. And I come across this enormous, can you see this, sheet of green paper. How do you drop a whole piece of green construction paper and not notice? Walk by it, not see it there. It's green. I'm just like, my kids, and I kind of pick it up, and I see it upside down. I can see my daughter Brooklyn's handwriting on it. It's like, Brooklyn is the sweetest thing in the world, and she leaves a trail behind her everywhere. Has the best of intentions to put things away, and it just travels from one inappropriate place to another. It's just always like, oh, Brooklyn, come on. She's my sweet little exercise in patience, I'm like, okay, here we go again. Here's Brooklyn with this trash. And I pick it up, and it says on the front, I don't know if you can see that. No, I can't do it. Oh well, this is me being not good at this. Yeah, it's kind of dark. Anyway, it says, bottom line, Jesus equals King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I just had to laugh. I'm like, here I'm grumbling, and here I'm being kind of rebuked with my attitude with my children's trash. So, I mean, God's funny. If you don't think that's funny, then, I don't know. I think God's funny. And that cracked me up. It was like, okay, I'm being witnessed to by garbage in my house, so that's fantastic. God will use anything, and that's, kind of comes back to the whole, I'm not perfect. That's why I'm, really embarrassed about doing these videos. It's like, who am I, But if we all waited until we felt like we were perfect to try to witness to somebody, nobody would witness ever, So I kind of have to get over myself, and I might feel like a piece of green trash, but I'm going to try to witness anyway. It just cracks me up. But anyway, let's see, another time that God was just kind of, I think, being funny. I was, driving. I can't remember where I was going. I was late. I had to go somewhere. I was in Sequim. And anybody who knows Sequim or has lived in Sequim or has even visited Sequim knows that driving in, from one end of Sequim to the other, it's what, guys, 3-mile long stretch. It takes forever. It's like the Twilight Zone. It's like a time warp there. The traffic is crazy. They put a bypass in, it's still crazy. And so I was running late. I'm just grumbling. I'm like, Lord, the traffic is just horrible. I'm still going to be so late. I'm just kind of, blah, blah, blah. How you do? Feeling sorry for myself because, whatever I was doing apparently, I don't know, made me late. So I'm grumbling about how traffic's always horrible. I'm probably going to hit every single red light through town because it was like 4:30. I mean, come on. It's going to be horrible traffic in Sequim. So I kind of hit the first light in front of the QFC there, and it was a green light. I was like, oh, well, that was lucky. At least I got one light. And I'm kind of like griping, you know, and then I hit the second light and I was like, well, that's funny. I kid you not. I went from one end of Sequim to the other and I did not hit my brakes once. 4:30 in the afternoon. When does that happen? Like never, ever. Okay. So by the end of, you know, town, I mean, at the time there was no light, there was no Walmart there yet or anything. So I can't remember where the last light would have been then, in front of McDonald's or something, like 7th. Anyway, by the time I hit the last light in Sequim, I had tears rolling down my face. I was laughing so hard. I was like, you know, I am a horrible, you know, complaining, whiny driver about, you know, driving through town in traffic and complaining all the time. And God's just funny. I mean, from one end of Sequim to the other, 4:30 in the afternoon, no brakes, no red lights. It's crazy. That's God. That never happens. That's God. So I thought that was funny. And let's see, one other story. I've got homemade rolls in the oven and I'm waiting for the timer to go off. So I'm trying to speed this along and get it done. But, you know, so the baby's finally napping. But let's see. I was just, I was going through a divorce and was just, you know, outside. It was nighttime, full moon, sitting outside, smoking a cigarette, feeling sorry for myself. You know, his life was so hard and I was just miserable, you know, and I'm just kind of complaining to God and talking to him and just, you know, everything was sad and horrible and just what was I doing with my life? I'm, you know, sleeping on a bunk bed in my mom's basement. Like, it doesn't get more depressing than that. So no offense, Mom, I appreciate you taking me in and everything, but that's still, I mean, it's depressing. So, anyway, I'm sitting there complaining and I'm looking up at the moon. I was like, you know, and another thing besides all of this stuff that's horrible, I have never been able to see the man in the moon. And right then, and I had looked forever and I'm like, I don't know what you guys are seeing out there. I don't know what you're seeing. I don't see it. It looks like a bunch of splotches, whatever, man in the moon. And I look up there and I said, I'm like, you know, another thing, I've never seen, you know, the man in the moon. And right when I said that, it was like my eyes were open and I could actually see it. And it was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I said, what about and right when I said, I didn't even finish my sentence. And it was like the veil was dropped from my eyes and I could see the ending in the moon. I don't know if all of you know what I'm talking about. I mean, you can see, like, for one, it looks like a man. And then if you look at the other, it's like the profile of an Indian sitting cross-legged. And you can see, like, the feather on top of his head, anything. But anyway, I couldn't even get the sentence out of my mouth. I'm like, what about and bam, I could see it. It was like, you know, my God is so cool that he's going to give me this little tidbit nugget of, I care about even that. Every little aspect of my life, as silly as something as that, he cares about. How cool is that? He made me feel so, in the middle of that horrible time in my life, feel so loved and so cared for and so, you know, listened to, like he was close to me. I wasn't doing this by myself. I wasn't doing it alone. I mean, and it feels like that when you're just so focused on you and what's going on with you, and it's hard, you know. And you think of that Footprints, you know, poem about, you know, you think that God's furthest from you when you're going through these hardships, you know, and the Lord doesn't promise that we're not going to go through hardships, but he promises that he'll be there with us when we go through them, you know. And it just was exciting to me. It was like, you know, that is super cool, because I had tried to see that stinking man in the moon and that Indian in the moon like forever, my whole life, and I couldn't. I'm just sitting there grumbling and grumbling and griping, and then it's just like, bam, it's awesome, you know. Now every time I see the full moon, I look at that and I remember that and think, you know, what an awesome God. What an awesome God I serve. You know, he's awesome. I mean, he's funny. You know, people, I feel like a lot of people picture this really mean, scary God who's up there just kind of like waiting for you to step out of line so he can squish you like a bug. And it's just not the case, you know. He's kind, he's loving, he loves you. He wants good things for you. You know, everything that Satan intends for evil, God intends for good, you know, for those that love him. And it's exciting, you know. And I mean, I understand that, I mean, some of you that are going to see this are Christians, are going to, you know, you'll feel that this is true. You'll understand what I'm saying, and you'll be in agreement with me, because, you know, I'm sure you have experiences like this too. But other people that think that I am just, you know, sipping the same crazy Kool-Aid that my mom is, you know, pray to God about it. Take it to God and say, you know, I mean, if you don't believe, say, hey, you know, I don't believe in you. If you're real, show me. Ask, and he'll reveal himself to you. Ask him to. You know, it's an interesting, cool experience, you know, to go through, to live this life with God. And kind of press in and see what he does every day. It's kind of an adventure, you know. It's not always an adventure that is pleasurable for you, henceforth me doing this, you know, but he blesses you anyway. So anyways, I just kind of wanted to share some of that, you know. God's funny. If you don't think God's funny, go look at a giraffe, you know. That's funny. You're crazy. So anyway, I don't know. I think I hear my oven beeping, so God bless everybody. Yeah, my rolls are beeping. I have to go. Take care. Bye.